up, y'all? Toya here, and I am back with another video for y'all. Before we get into the video, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, y'all, I am finally back. Look, I went out of town for a weekend. Literally the day I was supposed to come back home, I felt a little tickle in my throat, and I'm like, no, please don't say it so, because usually when I get sick, it always starts off with a sore throat. So yes, I ended up getting sick, and like I said, I'm about 80%, still dealing with a little bit of congestion, but hopefully I sound good enough, because I really wanted to record something, and my nasaliness, it just wasn't having it. So but hopefully I don't sound too crazy. Now, I am gonna hold off on the deliveries for now. I still do got a little bit of a lingering cough, and like I said, a little bit of congestion. So we gonna run up these commentary videos. I hope y'all don't get tired of these. So for today, we are gonna hop right back into a Toya Reacts video. This is where I react to anything and everything gig related. So today, I got 3 videos that I'm gonna react to, and yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, first video.
One of the things that drivers need to consider when accepting and declining these orders with a lot of their distance is their return on time. Now, for normal orders, that includes how long it's going to take to get to the restaurant itself, how long the wait time is at the restaurant, how long it's going to take from the restaurant to the customer's location, and how long it takes to drop off the order through any potential barriers. And with more drop-offs, miles, and potential traffic and customer challenges, the ROT you normally have can lead to more time spent on one route, as well as the opportunity cost to not being able to receive other offers while you're on a route, and even some dead med miles with no extra pay.
So yes, I 100% agree with this statement. Your time is super valuable when it comes to doing these delivery gigs. Now, I know I'm always putting so much emphasis on that paid to mileage ratio, and that is just as important. You know, wear and tear on your car, all that extra driving for no reason, for little to no pay, you know, all of that is important, but time is definitely something that you can't get back. So yeah, like if you see an offer that's gonna pay you $10 and it's going like 2 or 3 miles, right? You might be like, yo, I hit the jackpot. You know, that's a good offer to me, right? And then you drive there and say there's a train or something, right? You run into a train and you gotta wait there for like an extra 5 minutes. No biggie, right? You're like, yeah, it's just 5 minutes, whatever, right? Then you finally get to the restaurant and the food ain't ready. Now you gotta go ahead and wait for them to prep the food, get everything bagged up and all of that. And I know for you folks that do food delivery on a regular, you probably have a cutoff time for how long you're actually gonna wait for an order, whether that be 5, 6 minutes, whatever, right? But let's just say it's right under that cutoff time, however long it is, right? So you get the food and you're finally en route, you go ahead and drop everything off, and after everything's all said and done, you drop off the food, you might have wasted maybe 20, maybe 25 minutes or more to get $10. Now, would you say that's worth it? You technically only drove a good 2 to 3 miles. So good pay to mileage ratio, right? But how much time did you waste? And like you said, how many other orders did you miss because you had that extended wait time? And this is why, for me at least, it's hard for me to go ahead and justify doing food delivery, at least in my market, because you can waste so much time just waiting. You're waiting for an order to come to your phone. You're waiting for the food to get made if it's not ready for you by the time you get to the restaurant. And all of that in between, whether you're wasting mileage, you're wasting time getting to and from, all of that, it's really hard to justify doing food delivery, at least for me, because there are just so many unknowns that you really can't account for. So I would much rather do pre-scheduled orders, so the catering orders, Roadie if they decide to get it together, Amazon Flex, you know, all of those other apps where I can just pick when I want to work and I'm guaranteed that pay that they tell me up front, and there's no BS in between. You know, if anything comes after that, you know, that comes after. So like for instance, for Flex, if I get a crazy route that takes me far out or downtown or whatever, you know, I just gotta live with that, but I know I'm guaranteed this pay. Same with catering. I know how much I'm gonna get paid for that job. Now, if the customer cancels the order at the last minute, you know, it happens, but you know, it is what it is. But if I'm doing that gig, I'm guaranteed that pay. If I run into issues where I'm waiting at the restaurant, I get compensated for that extra wait time. So I would much rather do do that than turn on my app and not really know if I'm actually gonna be able to make the amount of money that I'm hoping to make for that time frame that I'm working. So yes, time is huge in the gig work scene. Now for y'all that do stick around and do food delivery, man, kudos to y'all, cause I ain't got the patience. I ain't got the patience, y'all. I'm sorry. All right, moving on to the next video.
DoorDash has partnerships with places like Advanced Auto Parts, as you see here, where there's not even a tip. It's not eligible. It's ineligible. They can't leave a tip. And that's fine because for business reasons and they got to keep the costs low. But do you do these runs? $10? For me, I'm missing no tip, no trip. But listen, for $10 going 2-3 miles, I'll do that. Deliver to a local business and help possibly get a fellow gig worker or somebody with a car get their car back on the road because I'm delivering a part that they need, that the mechanic needs to fix their car. $10, no tip, crazy base pay. Are you willing to do deliveries for auto parts? You might be missing out if you're not. $10 base pay, all day long, baby.
Now, absolutely. I would absolutely do that order. Now, I haven't been on DoorDash in some months, so I don't know how often you see these retail orders. Yeah, if base pay was at least $10 or however much the base pay is for these, if that was base pay for regular food deliveries, people wouldn't be tripping about tips. That's the main thing. It's like, I don't understand why it's such a hard equation to understand. It's like, if we had better base pay, we wouldn't really be tripping about no tips. You know, people stand by no tip, no trip, and that's perfectly fine. They aren't getting enough pay to justify taking that order. So yeah, if there's no tip in there, you know, it's a low paying order, why would I take it? But back to the main topic here, higher base pay in general. Yeah, if it was ineligible for a tip, which I'm not really tripping if I'm not getting a tip for, you know, some type of delivery like this. You know, this is retail. I know there are apps that do allow tips for retail items. Like for instance, through Roadie, there is an option that lists whether or not the customer did tip you. Now, I don't know what it looks like on the customer's end, you know, what platform they're ordering through. I'm assuming, especially like for the Walmart orders, they're just ordering directly through Walmart and they have so many orders, so they have to pass it on to other platforms, so Roadie gets it. I have seen tips on retail orders, but yeah, if DoorDash was to go and actually just raise base pay, nobody would be tripping if the tip wasn't eligible, to be quite honest. I might dabble in some DoorDash just for experimental purposes. If y'all want to see that, let me know, because I ain't gonna lie, it's like I said, it's kind of hard to justify doing DoorDash out here in my market. So, but I would be curious to see like if I get these types of orders out here, because honestly, I say it's worth it. I say it's worth it. If it's a high enough base pay, no tip, or it's not eligible for a tip, I ain't tripping. I just want enough money in my pocket. I don't care if it comes from the tip. I don't care if it comes from the base pay. As long as I get enough money to justify me taking that order, that's all I care about. That's really all I care about. So yeah. All right, moving on to the last video, and I'm actually in this video. I'll explain after you guys see the clip, but I'm gonna go ahead and play it for you right now.
So when you hear, you drive through, you go through the drive-through, and then you realize you have to tip, or that you're handed a screen that you would possibly have to tip on this drink you just ordered, or they just handed you. So do you feel like this tip screen should not happen, or it's too late, or
No, it's too much. It's too much. You shouldn't have to tip on every single thing. Like, I understand if, you know, you're providing a service for someone, say you're a waiter, you're a waitress, valet driver, you know, gig worker, you know, you're, you know, taking time out of your day, and as an independent contractor, you know, you're using your personal vehicle to go out, pick up someone's food or merchandise or whatever, and, you know, bringing it to their doorstep.
I ain't gonna lie, I forgot what I said at the end of that clip, but shout out to UDM because he did allow me to be on his live stream. This was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I would love to be on there again. So just to give you guys some context on what the conversation was, the whole topic of the overall live stream was just more or less reminiscing on the good old days of gig work, you know, whenever that was when you started. So for myself, I started back in 2020, right at the height of the pandemic. So some people started before, some people started after, but I started in 2020. And the thing that I remembered I was talking about is, you know, how much people were tipping because, you know, it was so dangerous to go outside. You know, going outside meant you were risking getting sick. So a lot of people were more willing to give, you know, pretty hefty tips. And, you know, that's the thing that I remembered, right, when I first started doing gig work. And so I more or less was comparing how people were tipping back then to how tipping is now, because I had went to Starbucks one day. I went through the drive-through, got me a Frappuccino, and I'm getting ready to pay, and they hand me this screen and it's asking like, how much of a percentage do you want to tip? And I'm looking, I'm like, I'm in the drive-through. So he was asking me, you know, how does that make me feel, you know, seeing, you know, that screen, you know, in my face, blah, 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 blah. And I more or less was saying, which of course, like I said, it kind of got cut out. The point I was trying to make is, you know, doing all that asking for tips for pretty much every single thing, it's doing too much. You know, businesses are more or less, I feel like they're taking advantage of the tip culture that we have in place. It's gotten out of hand. It's gotten out of control. So you guys know my motto when it comes to tipping, right? I don't mind tipping just for the simple fact that I know the workers already aren't getting paid enough. So if I'm able to go ahead and slide them an extra $5 for their troubles, you know, that might make it more worth it for them to take that order. Maybe it balances out if they get a no tip order later on in the night or something, right? So I was saying the whole thing as far as, you know, comparing waiters, waitresses, valet drivers, any type of service worker, gig worker, you know, I personally feel that tipping isn't really that big of a deal. Some people might say, well, why should I tip before it's completed? You know, blah, 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 blah. You know, I might do another video about this particular topic because if you haven't heard, DoorDash did release something on their platform that advises you that tips entice drivers to pick up your order, and they're more or less telling you like, hey, if you don't tip, you might not get your order until later, so, you know, put in a decent tip and you're gonna go ahead and get your food warm. You know, it's kind of crazy that they went ahead and placed that on their platform. Shoot, for me, honestly, I feel like it's more like a bid rather than a tip. You're more or less like, hey, come give me my food, I'll go ahead and give you this money or whatever, right? My way of thinking, like I said, this whole tip culture, and, you know, like I said, it's just gotten out of hand. I don't mind giving tips to people that I know aren't getting paid enough. And I was reading one of the comments in, you know, that particular clip, and, you know, somebody was saying, you know, they don't understand why people compare gig workers and waiters and waitresses. You know, it's not the same thing. Well, the reason I compare it is for the simple fact that we had this whole thing going on where people were talking about how waiters and waitresses were getting paid less than minimum wage. And knowing that they rely on tips, you know, they make their living off of tips. That's literally how it is for them. And I was comparing that to gig work because that's almost a parallel to how some gig work is, specifically for food delivery, right? If you go ahead and look out a summary of somebody's earnings for the day on DoorDash, I can guarantee you that if they're working the platform smart, for one, I would say a majority of their money is gonna come from tips. If not a majority, at least half. Like I said, if they're working the platform correctly. Now, if they're taking every single order, you know, maybe they're trying to get into the tier program, they're just taking scraps, you know, it's probably gonna be a little bit on the lower side. But if they're working the app the proper way and maximizing their profits, most of their money is gonna come from the tips. And like I said, it's a very eerie parallel to how it is with waiters and waitresses. So that's why I use that comparison. And knowing that that waiter or waitress is getting underpaid, some people will say, well, you know, they provide a bad service, I'm not going to tip them, or it's not my job to pay their wages. It's the same argument with gig workers. You know, I'm already paying enough for the food, so I'm not going to go ahead and tip. Or if you have a problem with your wage, take it up with your boss. Same arguments. But not to get too deep into that waiter waitress comparison, the whole point of that conversation was more or less to just bring up the whole fact that tipping has evolved into this, like, it's a monster. It's ridiculous. And, you know, businesses, they're just simply taking advantage and saying, hey, you know what? Why don't we just go ahead and ask for tips? Like, I shouldn't have to pull up to a drive-thru and have a screen handed to me asking me for a tip. Like, legit, when that happened, I was shocked because I've seen the tip screens on places that I don't think tip screens should go. Like, when I went and ordered food for pickup, I went into the restaurant, there's a tip screen there. I'm like, I'm picking up my food myself. Who am I tipping? I went into a convenience store to pick up some snacks. Went to the counter with my stuff to check out. Tip screen. Why is there a tip screen? I'm just picking up some pop and some chips. Why is there a tip screen? It's gotten out of hand. And like I mentioned in that live stream, you know, tip fatigue is a thing. So you got all these businesses hopping into this tip scene. And everybody's getting bombarded. Tip, 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 tip. You know, tip for this, tip for that. Why? So those people that actually do deserve those tips, they aren't getting them. Because before they ordered that food for delivery, that person probably got asked to tip at least 2 or 3 times throughout the day. So by the time they get home, they're tired and they're like, you know what? I don't feel like cooking dinner. Let me just order out. I'm gonna order Panda Express or whatever, right? And they order their food and they're like, dang, all this, I just ordered a platter with this and that. And dang, this costs $23. Okay, whatever, all these fees and stuff. And then they get to the screen about leaving a tip for your driver. At that point, they done seen tip, tip, tip. They don't want to see nothing else about no tip. And not to justify and say that, yeah, you know, if they constantly seeing tip, 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 they shouldn't tip. But like I said, it's tip fatigue. You keep seeing something over and over and over and over again. You just get fed up and you're just like, I don't want nothing to do with it no more. I don't want nothing to do with it no more. Now, I don't want to get too deep into some of these topics that I've touched bases on in that live stream. I kind of wanted to go ahead and do my own video on it based off of my experiences and, you know, just talk about some things in comparison to how things were back then and comparing them to now and discussing what the future might look like. Is it going to be similar to like how it was 2-3 years ago, or is it going to get worse? You know, I want to dive into all of that in a separate video, but yeah. All right, y'all, that's about it. Now, what do you guys think about these topics? Let me know in the comments. Now, before you go, again, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a video. But I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next one. And as always, stay safe out there and keep grinding.